Hello traders, this is Rich from Tradesight. This is our market preview for the coming session. This is going to be for Thursday, July 11th, 2013. We had a mixed session today, some up, some down, and internally the market was okay at best. We'll talk about the internals and everything else in just a couple of moments, but for now let's take a look at the major futures charts. Let's start with the ES minis. Here's a look at the ES futures. We had a small positive day. We're up 3 on the day. We did exceed the previous day's high and posted a very slight white candle, but we really didn't make any real movement. We are 9 days up in the secret count, so we're still expecting the count here to kind of hold things back for now, and are definitely willing to play two-way trade. If we do continue to the upside, resistance is going to be found at 5/8 at 16.56 and a quarter. If that is exceeded to the upside, we're going to find more resistance, substantial resistance at 16.67. To the downside, previous day's low, first support 16.37. Then we're going to have the gap window 16.31, and then with this convergence of these EMAs plus the 4/8 level at 16.25, which is a very formidable level. Moving on to the NQs. The NQs were much stronger than the ES futures. We opened with not too much of a gap and put in what is a very rare wide range candle to the upside here in this run to the upside. We're still 9 bars to the upside. We used the resistance area that we thought we would find today at 29.93. If we can exceed that to the upside, 3007, 3009 is going to be your next level. That's plus 1/8. Keep in mind that we're now above that 8/8 level in the Murray Math box, so this is all into overbought territory. To the downside, support's going to be found at the 8/8 level, 29.68 and 3/4, and then the 50 DMA here at 29.54 and a half. All right, take a look at the 10-day trend. That's the chart on the top. Below is the S&P. 10-day trend was fairly strong on the day. We're up we're at 1.35 on the close, so that moved the average up a little bit here. So we're moving back up towards that midpoint of the threshold here. So we're neither overbought nor oversold, and had a little bit of a build today in the 10-day average. All right, so looking at the cumulative advanced decline lines, we're plus a couple hundred issues on New York, which really didn't move the needle too much. We're plus 400 on NASDAQ. The NASDAQ did break it above the previous high. Now we're getting back up to the bottom of that regression channel. That regression channel could prove to be key resistance here on the NASDAQ side, so we have to see if that repels price, or if price wants to break back into this regression channel and challenge the old high, which would be a very positive thing overall for the market. All right, now looking at the BKX banking index, that's the blue line, versus the S&P. You can see that the banks were fairly weak here. We got fairly extended here with a good lead to the upside, but they really weren't able to hold it. What you don't want to see is you don't want to see the banks start to roll down here without the S&P being able to make a new high. If the banks can kind of hold here, perhaps even pivot higher and put on some higher prices, that would be very welcome for the S&P, and perhaps put a new breakout into play. We haven't looked at the SOX versus the NDX in a while. This is the SOX NDX ratio chart. We broke above this key resistance area here, which was very positive. We pulled back down and used that for support and are trying to pivot back to the upside. Let me just flip this chart to the weekly time frame just to show you the importance of this, give you a little better perspective. It was a major breakdown here in at the end of 2011 into beginning of 2012. This really was a lot to do with what was going on with Apple. It was very weak and really started to hold back the overall NDX performance. But we're starting to see the possibility of pivoting and breaking back above the high. We're above the high. We just need to make sure that we can hold it. If we can hold above this key level, there's really something for the overall NDX to build on, and that'll be very positive for the NASDAQ market, and then by extension, positive for the NASDAQ market generally turns into positive for the overall broad market. So we have to see if this can hold up. All right, take a look at the multi-sector daily chart. The BTK was fairly weak today. The stocks were positive, had a nice day there. Didn't quite take out the previous high. XAU still kind of bumping along the bottom here. We're starting to see some pretty good performance out of the biotechnologies, the BTKs up here challenging the prior high. So let's take a look at some of the individual sectors now. All right, so here's a look at our individual sectors ranked from best to worst. Obviously, the NDX was relatively strong today. You can see the BTK was a top gun, followed by the stocks. The drugs were also fairly firm. Down at the bottom of the list, kind of the broad market heavyweights. The OSX was lower on the day, and the BKX was the last laggard. The transports were also buried pretty far down on the list. So it was definitely more of a NASDAQ-oriented move. We'll have to see if we can get something to build on here on the NASDAQ side. Remember, the NASDAQ side starting to assert itself here would definitely be positive as the S&P could take a break here, take a breather. But if we can see momentum continue to develop in the overall NDX, that would be positive. All right, so here's a look at the BTK. We pretty much matched the previous high on the move here. We're now getting into the countdown phase. One thing to be aware of, though, is we're at plus 1/8 on the Murray Math box, which is back into the overbought territory. So we're going to have some resistance there. If we can break through that, the next resistance is going to come in at 21.25. Key support is going to be this 8/8 level at 2,000, which is also coincident with the 10 EMA. Taking a look at the SOX now. The SOX still has an active 13 exhaustion in place. We did bounce up higher here, but didn't really expand the range to the upside. We have this high opening up here that we weren't able to exceed. So this chart is above the 10 EMA, which makes it short-term positive, but we do have this seeker exhaustion 13 to contend with. Taking a look at the OSX. The OSX was just completed 9 bars up the previous day into the 8/8 level, which was a real resistance level. We had a very weak day. Closed at the low of the day, essentially, with oil being fairly strong on the day. So this is definitely a cause for concern for the bulls. If we get back up above here and try to push higher, we're going to have resistance at the plus 1/8 level at 269.5. Support is really going to start coming in at 261 3/4, and then the 10 EMA if we track back to the downside here. Keep in mind that MACD is in a positive state here. We crossed back above the zero line, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time here below the zero line to recharge. So this is really more or less just a continuation type move. Moving on to the banks, BKX, last laggard on the day. No surprise, we're expecting weakness in the banks today. We're 9 days up in the seeker count, and this is definitely should have been no surprise to anybody. So weakness in the BKX. We're in the overbought territory of the GAN box. If they do pivot this and turn to the upside, 65.5 area is going to be key resistance, which is plus 2/8 on the Murray Math box, and also the risk level from this fresh seeker exhaustion signal. To the downside, this 8/8 area, 62.50 is going to be key support. It's one of the big 3 numbers on the Murray Math box. It's also the prior high here, and it's also roughly coincident with the 10 EMA. Gold didn't do too much on the day, but it was up on the day. We do have a positive MACD cross that's pretty fresh here, so there's a little bit of energy for this to build on. We did settle above the 10 EMA for the first time now in many moons, so we really need to get a follow through above that. We need to close above this day's high, and if we do so, we could turn this to short-term positive. Now taking a look at the oil futures. Oil futures were really on a moonshot here. We're 9 days up. That didn't repel price. I think the thing to keep in mind here is that this is pretty much a power move now. The MACD's got a lot of momentum. The CCI is starting to get extended. It's up in that 200 area, but it could make one more push. If it does, that's going to open the door here to the 8/8 level at 112.50 in oil futures. All right, folks, as always, thanks for listening. This has been Rich from Tradesight.